ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون صدق الله العظيم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم النكاح من سنتي. So alhamdulillah, today's topic, today's program is about marriage, titled Happily Ever After. And inshallah we'll be talking mainly about those people who are looking for potential spouses, potential partners. Sometimes people who've never been married, they've been looking for a long time, they're finding it difficult. Some people maybe who've been through a marriage, a tough marriage, and often people have bad experiences. And life is based on experiences. People make judgments, decisions based on the experiences of the past. But sometimes we have to look at what Quran and Hadith says about these experiences. That someone who's been through a tough marriage, or maybe they didn't even get married. Sometimes they had hope in a man or a woman, everything was looking good and it didn't turn out, and then negative. So inshallah we will look at evidence and guidance in Quran and Hadith. So alhamdulillah, with myself, I offer marriage counseling and I offer support even to those looking for marriage, premarital counseling. Something which is not heard of, but often people come and they say, we found a guy for our daughter, we found a girl, but you know something's not right. So sometimes we may speak to the parents, sometimes we may even call the boy and girl and see if they are suitable potentials for each other. That is better than getting married, jumping to nikah, shotgun nikah as we call it, and then all of a sudden what happens? Within months is broken. Because you know, Maulana Sahib, we had red flags but we didn't pay attention to them. Somebody told us, कि ये रिश्ता ठीक नहीं है, but we didn't listen. So better than that is something which is not prevalent, but I do agree with premarital counseling. So marriage counseling is often once they're married and they're having problems. But premarital is also important to ask anybody. Doesn't have to be an alim or a mufti. Sometimes you get these aunties and uncle matchmakers. They have a lot of wisdom, experience and insight. That, you know, I don't think this is suitable. I don't think it's going to work because there's so many things you don't agree on. You've got deal breakers. So he's not budging, she's not budging. Then best not to get married than to get married and suffer. So hopefully, inshallah, in today's program we will shed a bit of light on what to look out for, why we get married, and our intentions. So that's the first thing I'm going to ask our audience, inshallah. Why do people get married? What's the reasons? It might seem like a very obvious question, but let's see what you guys think. So one is sunnah, is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and sunnah of most prophets. Most prophets got married, and sometimes multiple marriages as well, that many times. So even the Prophet ﷺ, we know he got married 11 times. And other prophets as well. So it's a sunnah of the prophets and all the prophets. What's another reason people get married? For increase the ummah. So for children, for pious progeny for children, and that should be an intention when you get married, to have children, which I will touch upon as well, that in terms of having children, how many children. So generally our imams, ulama, they tell us to have children. Then sometimes people have 3, 4, 5 children, they can't cope. And I know cases that have come to me is because of the children, meaning not the children are a problem, that we've got 5 kids, my husband's never home. My husband's working, he's out, he's doing charity work, which sounds so good, but sometimes the children have become the cause because the mother can't cope. So what does Islam say about having children? Just keep having children non-stop? Inshallah we'll touch upon that at the end. What's another reason that people get married? Companionship, very important in this day and age. A lot of people, I'll be honest with you, sometimes, especially when they're divorced, and even when they've had a tough marriage, they reconsider because everybody needs somebody. Human beings need companionship. Everybody needs somebody. And there's no age limit. I've had people who are sometimes in their 50s and 60s, widows, single moms, but they can't cope on their own. So you need companionship. Now let's look at some of the wrong intentions. So these are good intentions. Sometimes a person can get married for the wrong reasons, bad intentions. What would a wrong intention be? That you're getting married but your intention is not correct. An important one. So we get told that when you do nikah, you fulfill your desires in a halal way. There is a haram way of doing many things. Yeah? A person can earn money. Yeah? He can do fraud, he can rob people, he can become the local drug dealer. He's earning money, and I earn money, and you earn money, but it's the wrong way. It's a haram way of doing it. So there's a halal way of earning money as well. In the same way, fulfilling your desire, there is a halal way and the haram way. So the haram way is just go to a club or a pub, go to college and uni, meet a guy and a girl, and just start dating and courting, as they call it. But there is no nikah. And they may even take it further than talking and texting and do things. Haram way. So fulfilling your desires, there is a halal way, which is nikah, which is what we're going to talk about today. So it's important that a person fulfills their desires in a halal way. Just like many other things, a person can have water, can have juice, can have a drink. It's halal. Or you're thirsty, it's a hot day, you can go to the pub and have a pint. It's a haram way of doing it. A person's hungry, he can go to the local halal butchers and eat halal meat, or he can just go to Morrison's, Tesco, and pick up any frozen chickens and eat haram. So Islam has taught us and given us guidance. There's a way to live our life, a code of conduct. So just fulfilling desires isn't enough, and this is sadly a mistake men make. More men make this. That, you know, I married her, I did my intention that I just want to stay away from haram. But does he spend time with her? No. Does he fulfill her rights? No. Does he give expensive? No. He'll even have children. That we said earlier, increasing progeny is a good intention, but he's never there for his children. It's a wrong intention just for desires. Let's make that clear. That if somebody says, you know, I can't control my desires, you have to fulfill the other rights as well. What's another wrong intention that people have when they get married? For money. For money. So he's rich or she's rich. A woman can be rich as well. So I married her, you know, her dad's the richest in Burnley. They've got several properties. They own several factories. So I always wanted to marry a rich girl, then I won't have to work. I wanted to marry a rich guy. He's got a 6-figure salary. He's a bank manager. He's an accountant. He's a barrister. So you only married for dunya, which we will again come on to in detail. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ does say that people marry for dunya, for mal. And to only do that is incorrect. So you didn't look at, does she pray salah? Does he go to the masjid? You just looked at the 6-figure salary. Then 6 months later, a year later, he's beating the wife up. She's not loyal to you. And you say to me, well, I only married her for the money. Your intention was incorrect. So intention is very big. It's something we learn right from madrasa. Intention for coming here. Why are you here? You're here because your parents forced you, or you're here because you want to learn? Then you'll benefit. You get married for the right intention. I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good husband. Your marriage will work, inshallah, because your intention is good. And it's something, I say, in life you learn about intentions, that we get to niyat sahi kar lo. People are coming from Hajj. In the last few days, people are coming from Hajj. Kisi ne Hajj kiya Allah ke liye. Okay, I want to change my life. I want to start keeping a beard. I want to pray namaz. I don't pray namaz regular. I never go to the masjid. A sister goes, you know, I don't wear decent clothing. I want to start wearing hijab. I want to wear abaya. I want to change my life. Allah will make that happen. Guaranteed. There is no doubt. And there is another brother, sister who does Hajj. Dunya ke liye. Alhamdulillah, maine 8 Hajj kiye hai. 12 Hajj kiye hai. Just to show people on Snapchat and Instagram, then that Hajj is questionable. Every step of the way they're making videos to show the world. In the same way is marriage. So Hajj is big, once in a lifetime. Marriage is also big. Could be once in a lifetime. So you make your intention correct. Another wrong intention is you're only getting married just to fit in. I'm 25 now, I'm 27, I'm growing up, all my cousins are married, so I need to get married. Sounds good on the surface, it's wrong. What if you're not ready for marriage? For a man financially, he doesn't have a job. He wakes up at this time of the day. To me, that person, he shouldn't get married, because when he's going to get married, he's going to have the financial burden of his wife and possible kids, but he's not going to be able to fulfill it. Mentally, a person is not mature enough. Man or woman. Sometimes even a woman. She can't fulfill the rights of her husband, and her parents need to teach her. It's the same with a man. He's never paid a bill in his life. He's not passed his driving test yet. He's 25, 27 years old. And we know the reality that when he gets married, he's going to have to take his wife out on holidays. So if you are not financially capable, mentally capable, then that person should not get married. So you're only looking at, all my siblings are married, I'm the last one, so I need to get married. Cultural reasons. Cultural reasons mean that, for example, 18, 20, 21 years old, all the sisters in the family got married, so she needs to get married. Every child is not the same. Every person is not the same. Every man is not the same. Another reason, and this one is common nowadays, is usually comes from the parents. The son, he has bad habits, addiction, drugs, alcohol, something even worse. बस उसकी शादी कर लो ठीक हो जाएगा. So the drug and the alcohol addiction now comes onto the wife. So they got them married. Whether they got married here, they got married in India, Pakistan, the wife bears the whole burden of this guy. उसकी बीवी की जिम्मेदारी नहीं है to fix him. She's now become a babysitter, A&E. I call them wives, you become the A&E. You have to fix your husband 20, 25 years of problems which their parents couldn't fix. Shadi kar lo, theek ho jayega. Incorrect. Your intention is incorrect. First, fix the problem. Get rid of his habits. And it's the same for a woman if she has habits. Don't just get her married and thinks marriage will fix it. So some of these intentions are incorrect. Final question. We see marriages nowadays, sometimes they last months, sometimes they only last a few years. So one of the things I'm going to discuss is the reasons for breakage of marriage. Why do you think marriages break? What's the common reasons why we see people, they don't last in marriages? Wealth. So money issues, one's not paying, it does happen. And sometimes it can be the man's side, he's working, she's working, but she's paying for everything. Incompatibility, very good. So this is where we say the premarital helps counseling. That look, are you compatible? Don't just look, we are from the same village in Pakistan. So does that mean everybody in that village is suitable for everybody? Just think about it. That's what people say, innit? People who are cultural and traditional say, you know, they are our relatives, they are from our village, so that means every girl in that village is suitable for your son. Incompatibility. So we have to work with the times. Yeah? We don't say Islam changes, but certain conditions can change. If you ask an alim, a scholar, even a mufti changes the fatwa sometimes, zamane se. There are many things, when we growing up as children, were haram, the biggest haram. And some of those things have been watered down now. For example, video photography is one. It was the biggest sin in the 90s. If you grew up in the 80s, 90s, video photography was totally haram. You go Hajj, Umrah, video photography is everywhere. There are ulama coming on videos. Things have changed. Things can change depending on country. So in a certain country, something can be halal, and in another country can be haram. Because fatwas change. In the same way, you have to work with the time. So this is mainly for parents, that you have to be clued on with the social needs. That children, if you ask me, British children, compatibility is big. And they know. Your kids know better than you if he's compatible, if she's compatible. From talking, one meeting, they will know. You know, the guy didn't even look up at me. You know, the guy didn't even ask questions. I went to meet him, he didn't even talk. I was doing all the questions like an interviewer. And sometimes the guy will say from one meeting, well, you know, I went to see her, the way she was dressed, I don't want a wife like that. I don't want a woman who walks, I don't want her to be the mother of my children. That's fine, then don't marry her. There are plenty of fish in the sea. So compatibility is a big reason why marriages break up, because you didn't look at that. Anything else? Why we think marriages break up? Rights, okay, rights is big. Rights is a big one. So with rights, I'll mention now in case I forget later, I always say, and obviously we're in England, so I'm going to talk about British people, British Muslims. The way society is going, mashallah, education is on the increase, awareness, knowledge, it's good. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes knowledge can be dangerous as well, because it's always about, well, you know, I've got 7 rights and I demand my rights. Whether that's the man or the woman. So it's all about demanding rights. And I'll say a quote of a senior alim of this country, Maulana Salim Dorat Sahab, always used to say on marriage, don't demand your rights. Now somebody could stood up and say, Astaghfirullah, how can you say don't demand my rights? Allah ne likha hai, mujhe chahiye. Listen carefully. Don't demand your rights, fulfill your rights. Fil demand ki baat hi nahi aayegi. If everybody fulfills their rights, the husband knows, I have to pay expenses, roof overhead, clothing, look after my children, I have to give her time. Time is part of the rights as well. It's one that's neglected by men. He does that, the wife will never need to go to an alim mufti counselor. He's ticking the boxes. In the same way, a wife knows what she has to do. She ticks the boxes. The husband will have no room to complain. If everybody fulfilled their rights, then marriages will be successful. And I've seen this. I've seen this in marriage counseling. Often the lack of rights is a big reason. And then it's very hard, because a man who doesn't pay his way around, there are women, many women sadly pay for everything. The man is working. Sometimes it could be men from back home, they're just funding back home. Funding back home is not your responsibility. When you got married, your wife comes first. Yes, you want to send money to your parents, no problem, we won't stop you. But you can't just be putting all your wages back home and your own kids are starving. So lack of rights is one. And the other one, brother, you said? Abuse. Okay, so abuse is big. Abuse in terms of mental abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. And sadly nowadays it's both sides as well. So often when we say abuse, men are the perpetrators. Times are changing. And there are cases where I have dealt with, men may be ashamed, but in a private setting they do say, my wife verbally abuses me. Even physically, they may not hit, punch and slap, but women nowadays can get angry and violent as well. And obviously majority is still coming from men. So abuse is a big one. If you know in your research, when you're checking profiles, you've asked auntie, uncle, and they say he's abusive to his parents, red flag. Run away. Or if she is abusive in society, she's known to have a sharp tongue, red flag, run away. Why run away? Somebody will say to me, well, that's cowardice. Can you live with that daily? No man, no woman wants to come home to an abusive husband, an abusive woman who's just non-stop shouting. And it happens. There are many men who say, I don't want to go home. And that's why he's out playing football, volleyball, snooker. He's out and about. Because nobody wants to come home to a stressful life. Recently, I went to a nikah in Blackburn, and there was a few uncles sitting there talking about marriage. And one of them, they were discussing their ages. Some were like 65, some were 70. And one of them said in a joking way that if you want to have a long life, have a good wife and children. Because men who die early are those men who come home to problems, to issues. And you have to be fair, same with the woman. If a woman wants a good life, a long life, then marry a good husband. And I actually agreed, because I know what I deal with. The men who don't want to come home, and men sometimes who have mental health issues, who have other issues, is because they've got issues at home, which could be their own problem as well. Especially when it comes to children, if you don't do tarbiyah of your children, then you will have issues, but that's your own fault. That's not society's fault. So that's something I will say, that in looking for a partner, don't just look at beauty, wealth, etc. Also look at, is this person going to fulfill my rights? Man and woman. Is this person going to give me sukoon? There, the Quran ayat I read, Allah says that He made us in pairs, لِتَسْكُنُوا. So you can get sukoon, peace and tranquility and contentment. So when you're marrying the guy, you're looking at the girl, is she going to bring peace into my home? Or is she going to bring fire and make this home into hell? Which sadly what happens, if you've married the wrong man or the wrong woman, Allah says your house will become Jahannam. And I'm not saying this, I've heard this from many ulama who also deal with marriages. Said, ye gar Jahannam ho gaya, because you married the wrong man or wrong woman. It's an everyday thing. Marriage is not on the weekends. Marriage is not in the holidays. It's not term time. Marriage is 24/7. Hence, the biggest reason why I deliver these courses and programs is so people can at least have a bit of insight how to make that decision. A very important decision. Such a decision which I often say, your family, everybody has a family. You have a mom and dad, whether you have one sibling, two siblings. Your family, you don't get to choose your family. Did anybody choose their family here? You chose your mom and dad? Or you chose your siblings, I'll have him as my brother, she'll be my sister, he looks alright, or you're a bit arrogant, no, you're a bit cocky, I don't want you as my brother, I can't be living with you. You did not choose your siblings. But the family you make when you get married, you choose your husband, you choose your wife. And in one way we could even say you're choosing your children then, because she is the mother of your children, he is the father of your children, so you chose that man to be the father. So your children turned out bad because they're an example of their dad. You chose the dad, you chose the mother. And that's how important marriage is. So I'm going to start with, there are times when nikah can become compulsory on people. There are times when nikah can become compulsory. You have to. Just like salah is fard, there are times when nikah becomes fard and wajib. And did you know, not often said, there are times when nikah can be haram. How can nikah be haram? I mentioned earlier that it's there to fulfill your desires in a halal way. I am now saying to you that there are times and situations where nikah for a man or a woman can be haram. You can't get married. Does anybody know when? I did allude to it earlier when I said if a man is not financially capable, mentally stable, he cannot fulfill rights, then it's haram for him. Why is it haram? If he gets married, he's going to end up doing zulm on his wife and potential children. Because he's not with it himself. He can't fulfill rights. So the wife is suffering. And maybe some ways of a woman as well. That if she cannot fulfill the rights of a husband, ulama will say it's haram. And if you have doubts on what I said, ask your local ulama and imam. So when does nikah become fard? If a person knows he's going to end up committing haram, zina, fornication. But then this is conditions. It doesn't just mean the guy goes and marries the first girl on the street, first girl he sees on the bus, because of the other conditions as well. So a man, let's say Abdullah, he can't control his desires. He's 18 years old, 20 years old in university. Yeah, he's away from his parents and he sees the nightlife of university. And now he rings me and says, Maulana, you know, I'm going to end up doing zina. All my friends have already committed zina. So we will say that, you know, if you cannot control yourself, it's fard, but at the same time, in brackets we put, he has to fulfill the conditions. Conditions of finance, conditions of a house, conditions of maintenance. And if he cannot, then we're going to tell him to prepare for that. And why I say this is because sometimes, often parents have made this mistake. They'll say, oh, bacha 18 saal ka tha, he was 18, 19, he was going to uni. Humne socha ye zina mein pad jayega, uski shaadi kar li. But I have spoken to that boy and I've thought, you are not mature. You're not mature enough to get married. So you have to have a balance. That's why certain things in deen need to be explained. There is a ruling that if a person is going to end up in haram, it's farz and wajib. But at the same time, the ulama need to be mentioned, the conditions need to be fulfilled. If they are not, he will oppress that wife. So what is marriage? Marriage, many people describe in many things what we've said. People marry for different reasons. There is a quote I saw once in a book, and it has a unique definition of marriage. The marriage are two unique individuals who come together and complement each other, support each other, who are God-fearing, and guide and encourage each other to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What a beautiful definition. I've never seen a definition like this. Yeah, like I said, people marry for different reasons. So let's just go through that. Two unique individuals who support each other. Very important. Make sure your husband and wife supports you, not goes against you. Which we see often when they get married, it's like tennis. He said this, but she said this, but my mother-in-law did this, so I'm going to do this to his mother, etc. It's become opponents. That's not marriage. You are enemies. Yeah, you like Russia and America. That's not marriage. Marriage, you are meant to be allies who are God-fearing. The most important ingredient in any marriage is God-fearing. Now, don't misunderstand my words by saying that, so this guy said, as long as he's God-fearing, he's got beard, jabba, she wears hijab, niqab, marry her. No. Because when did I say God-fearing is in the beard? There are many people who have a beard who beat their wives up. There are many people who wear thobe and beat their wives up. There are many sisters who wear hijab and niqab. They cannot control their mouths. They are abusive. They are violent. So we need to understand God-fearing. This one, inshallah, I'm going to take a bit of time on, because this is the one I see is the biggest flaw. And it's the flaw in understanding. People haven't understood what taqwa and God-fearing is. So the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in a hadith that generally men The hadith is about men but applies to men and women. Men and women get married for 4 reasons. Yeah? لِمَالِهَا وَلِجَمَالِهَا وَلِحَسَبِهَا. So one, we've discussed some of these. Limal, for wealth. Yeah, the brother said that a man marries a woman for money, and a woman marries a man because he's a bank manager, he's a barrister, he's a doctor, he's a solicitor, so he's on a good whack wage. That's my financial security done. But the guy doesn't pay salah. The woman doesn't wear hijab, she doesn't cover up. Then later they have problems. So limaliha is a reason. The Prophet ﷺ, these are the reasons they get married. Number 2, li jamaliha, for her beauty. A man marries a woman, mashallah, she is stunning. She is like a model. I've never seen a woman like this. But that's the only thing he looked at. That's why the problem is. Don't think I am saying that there should not be attraction. There should be attraction. To the point some ulama say, if there is no attraction, don't marry her. Why do they say that? It's through experience, because if you marry a woman you are not attracted to or compatible, then the man will look elsewhere. Eventually he'll get fed up of her because he was never attracted in the first place. And it's the same with a woman. If you are not attracted to the guy, you know, some women like a tall man, some women don't like certain features. That's your choice. Don't marry him. So the Prophet ﷺ saying wealth is a reason, beauty is a reason, and walihasabiha, her lineage. She is from a certain caste, certain village, certain brotherly, and you know that family is good for us. That is good. If to look at respectable, noble lineage is good. I am not saying if in Burnley or Nelson there is a family, they are known, all the family are muttaqi, pious, ulama, huffaz, the women cover up, generally they're pious, don't marry them. No. What we are saying, it shouldn't be the only reason, that you only looked at lineage. You only looked at wealth. That all their sons are doctors, all their daughters are educated, their family is rich, the richest in Burnley. That's wrong. And to prove it is the next word of the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, فَاظْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ. So these are the things you look at: wealth, beauty, and lineage. But from all of these things, the most important is deen. And that's where I said the fear of Allah. Where in this quote it says, 2 people who fear Allah. How do we know who fears Allah? How do you know I fear Allah? How do I know you fear Allah? Anybody know? Very good. Actions. The beard is not fear of Allah. Beard is good, by the way. I am not belittling the beard. If a sister wants a guy with a beard, very good. But what I am going to say, just because he had a beard does not mean he feared Allah. Don't stop there. And it's the same with the brothers. Just because she wore a hijab is not alone a sign of a woman who fears Allah. There is much more to that. And it's what the brother said, it's actions. Fear of Allah comes in actions. What does he do when he gets angry? The same bearded man who prays namaz, he breaks things, he smashes things. He's abusive to his parents. If you hear that, run away from that guy, like you run from a lion. Because if he's abusive to his parents, there is no doubt he will abuse his wife and kids. In the same way, a woman, you know, she can't control her tongue. She's lazy, she can't cook and clean. And that's essential for a man, let's be honest. Whether it comes in the rights or not, if a woman can't cook and clean, that's going to cause problems in the marriage. I'll tell you that now. So if you know that she's 25 years old, she's 30 years old, yeah, and she can't fry an egg, then leave it. If you know that she can't do the basics, so you got to look at actions. And one of the greatest ways, when I come on to the questions, inshallah, what questions to ask, is ask about conflict resolution. Every marriage has problems. The greatest of marriages, the marriages of the Prophet ﷺ, there was times he was upset with his wives. His wives were upset with the Prophet ﷺ. They were humans. They were great people, but they were humans. So how did they deal with that? This shows you the fear of Allah. You cannot see how much I fear Allah. If you judge me from my hat, beard and thobe, it's wrong. Most people do that. कि बहुत बड़ा मौलवी साहब है माशाल्लाह, उसकी दाढ़ी बहुत लंबी है और लंबी तस्बीह लेकर आया. That's not fear of Allah. Anybody can put on a front and a show. Fear of Allah is in the heart. It is manifested through actions. Now how are you going to know this before marriage? You need to do what I call the DBS, You need to do the DBS check, you do your research. So a lot of people just think about istikhara. Humne istikhara kiya. Istikhara is 50%. There is istishara as well, mashwara karo. Do your research on people. Because fear of Allah is the greatest ingredient. And when you don't look at that, or you didn't know that, that's what caused the problems. Because then you realize you've married him, he doesn't go to the masjid. Shadi se pehle kaha ke 5 waqt ki namaz padhta hai. So did you ask the brother, did you get your brother or father to ask that in Abu Bakr masjid, have you ever seen this brother? Never seen him on Jummah. That's your DBS. So how can a man fear Allah if he doesn't pray salah? In other words, if he doesn't fulfill the rights of Allah, how is he going to fulfill your rights? Same with the sisters. And I think that's a very important point. Because in every Muslim's life, first comes Allah. You get married and your husband, wife comes second. First comes Allah. If Allah is not in his life, if you know, for example, he is earning and dealing with haram money, red flag, run away. Run away, he's going to feed you haram money, your children haram money, run away. So these are some very important points. In a nikah, when a person performs nikah, they usually recite 3 verses. 3 verses, yeah? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih, O you believe, fear Allah as he should be feared. Number 2, Ya ayyuhan nasu ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida. Surah Nisa, the first verse. O people, fear Allah, the one who created you from one soul. And the third one, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha wa qulu qawlan sadida. O believers, fear Allah and say good words. 3 verses, every single one of you will have heard, especially the men in the masjid, when nikah is performed. Each one of these verses has one theme. Fear Allah. Think about it. At the time of nikah, the brother and sister is being reminded to fear Allah. Why do those verses be recited? I've already explained. Because the fear of Allah is your fundamental, what you need to look at when looking at a spouse. And if you find that, and number 2, you can prove it. Not just from a meeting. Meetings do not show fear of Allah. Meetings just put a good display on. Anybody can put a thobe on. Anybody can wear a nice ring and sit there with a tasbih and put a few Islamic books in the room. That's not fear of Allah. For fear of Allah, you need to do your research and find out that is this person actually God-fearing? Is this person going to be right for me? So I've mentioned about the 4 reasons which apply to men and women. What generally we look at, but look at deen. Now I've also mentioned about getting married at the right time. Don't get married because you've reached a certain age. Men and women. So with men, sometimes, like I said, he's got a job, he ticks the boxes, he's 25 years old, but then sometimes some men are not mature. So he might have a job, he might have a good car, their parents bought him a house, but he's not mature enough to get married. Maturity is very big in men. It's one of the biggest things we deal with men in marriage. They're not mature enough to understand a woman. Emotional intelligence, very common. The biggest thing women complain about is emotional intelligence, which basically means the man doesn't understand the woman's needs. And that's where biology kicks in, that you have to learn a bit about how a woman works. And it's the same for a woman. You can't say to me that I'm 35 years old now, I'm 37, I'm going to turn 40 next year, so I don't know if I'm going to have kids, I'm just going to get married to anybody. The first thing I'll say is you're 37, 39, you're desperate to get married. What did you do for the last 10 years? And often from women, I was busy with my career. It's a growing trend in women, I was busy with my career. So was your career more important? Career is important, but is it so important that you left your marriage? You didn't think about your children when you're 25 and 30, and now you're just going to haphazardly get married to any guy. So it's very important we don't just get married for cultural norms. Another thing which is important, a person should know himself. Now some of you will think, maybe some of you sitting here looking for marriage, I'm 30, 35, who is this guy teaching me about myself? Believe it or not, a lot of people get married, they do not even know their own personality, so they don't know what they want. So are you a bubbly person? Are you introvert, extrovert? Because if you know that, then you know what you're looking for. Are you an honest person? Are you direct? Or are you somebody who's a bit deceptive and manipulative? Now nobody in a meeting is going to tell you, you know, I lie a bit, I'm a bit deceptive, I don't always tell the truth. But that's for you to work out. So if you're an honest person, you obviously want an honest person. And you will get people who will deceive you. You'll get men who deceive you, women who deceive you. Are you gentle, kind and patient? You know, I've not come from a household or a family where there's a lot of hustle and bustle, a lot of anger and arguments, busy. I've come from a small family, I only have 2 siblings, and my mum and dad were very gentle, kind, patient. We're a happy family. So the husband I'm looking for needs to meet those requirements. You should know yourself. In the same way, are you a person who bottles things up? So this is again more for men. Doesn't talk much, sits in silence. So when they get married, often the wife will say to me, I don't even know what's wrong with him. He's not spoke to me for 3 weeks. He's not looked at me. And it's because his personality is like that. So if you can't deal with that, nobody likes silent treatment, then find out from your meetings, find out from your research, that is this a person who's open, who shares his feeling. And for women this is very big, very big. Women generally do share feelings, talk openly, they're more extrovert. And the problem they have with men is men go in their cave, the man's cave. And them caves sometimes last for a very long time, I can tell you. So they don't open up, and the wife doesn't even know what's wrong. And it chews them up inside. So a person should know his own personality, and he should know and she should know what she wants. And a final one is, people get married at different ages. Some people get married at 25, some people get married at 35. Yeah, first time married. So you've been through things in life. Maybe the 25-year-old hasn't experienced trauma, hasn't experienced certain things. The one who's 35, I'm getting married at 35 because I've been through things in life. My own parents were divorced. I lost my mum. I lost a sibling. Maybe there's only 2 siblings. I lost my elder brother or elder sister. So this person has now gone through many things. One, they've delayed marriage, and they will have trauma. Call it baggage, call it trauma, call it what you want. You need to deal with that before marriage. Because let's say somebody who's lost a parent at a young age, it affects marriages, especially the mother. Somebody who loses their mother when they were young, it will affect, because they've not had a mother's love. Even if the dad remarried, etc., it is not the same. And I'm saying this because I've seen this in a lot of men who lost their mother when they were young. My advice is get counselling done, go through your trauma, and then get married. If you don't go through the trauma, you'll get married, your wife will deal with it. And she has to deal with basic things because he didn't have a mother's love, he didn't have a mother's care. So everybody, I do believe, has some sort of baggage. Little or large, some people have a lot. Where you grew up in a household where there was domestic violence, for example. Yeah, your dad beat your mum up. Now you've witnessed that as a child. You're a man, you've got that anger rage inside you now because that's what you saw your dad do. Your mum slipped up, he slapped her one. It happens, it's reality. And it needs to be talked about, because if you don't talk about it and hide it behind the curtains and shy away, then sadly women are left to burden it all. So if you're a man that saw this and you know it's wrong, counselling, talking therapies, deal with it, because you do not want to treat your wife the way your dad did. And I'm saying this because it happens. A lot of domestic cases, violence cases we deal with, often it will be learned behaviors. When you look into the man, you go through those layers, and eventually he'll say, yeah, my dad used to do the same. That's why I hate my wife. I don't know how to deal with conflict resolution. I don't know what it means to sit down and talk about things. Go to an imam. I just slapped her one. That's the only way I know. So trauma often comes up in marriage counselling, what people go through. Another one which isn't often said is there's obviously abuse. You were physically abused or even sexually abused, and this is for men and women. People who go through that, and I know in masjids generally you can't talk about this, so I'll say here, if a man or woman went through that, he was physically abused as a boy, whether it was his own parents or somebody else, or they went through sexual abuse, and often with sexual abuse they close the doors of marriage. Yeah, I say to anybody, never close the doors of marriage, because your rizq and taqdeer is in Allah's hands. Whatever you've been through, and no doubt there'll be people sitting here that have been through things, because I said everybody has a bit of baggage. You need to unwrap those layers and talk about it. Not talking about it, and I have had men and women come to me for counselling who went through sexual abuse, now it's affecting their marriage. So even men who are sexually abused, they can't sleep with the woman. Same with the woman. They don't want to get close to man because they're still traumatized from what happened 20 years ago. You need to deal with it. Because if we're going to talk about things to look at before getting married, this is a very important one. So what sort of things, if you're going through profile route, website, what sort of things are red flags and what sort of things are green flags? We'll quickly go through them, inshallah. I've already mentioned God consciousness, yeah? Fearing Allah is not going to happen in a meeting. It's not going to happen in a phone call. You need to do your research. And it's not the beard and the thawb and the hijab. You have to look at his dealings, his language, his mannerisms. Respect is another one. Is this person known to be respectable in society? And I will add to that, is his family known to be respectable? So often children say, well, you marry the wife, you marry the husband, I don't need to do anything with his parents. If you are one of those people who say that, you are wrong. And let me just give you one example. If you have an issue with your wife, typically a wife will go to her parents, whether she rings them or she goes back home. Who are you now dealing with? The wife's not ringing you, her mum and dad are ringing you. If they are vulgar and violent and abusive, that's what you're dealing with. And sometimes it just took one argument, and then the daughter never comes back. Because now the ball is in the court of the parents. And the parents are not Islamic, they don't have knowledge. To the point they could even end up in violence, that your brother-in-law, sister-in-laws are dealing with it. So respect is important both ways. Even for women, find out, is she a respectful individual? Does she help out around the house? How does she dress? How does she deal with her own siblings, her cousins? That's what is useful in the research. Balanced ego. Ego plays a big part in a marriage and is often also the cause of the breakage of marriage. My opinion, everybody has an ego. Little or large, everybody has an ego. Yeah, and we got to work on our egos. You have an argument, ego comes out first. And where ego comes out first is the wife is blaming the I didn't do that wrong. I didn't say this. He never accepts. And sometimes a woman never accepts. So it's very important that you yourself look at your own ego. And if you feel you're an egotistic person, work on it before marriage. Marriage isn't going to fix it. I've never heard of anybody that got married and the ego went down. But if you ask me, because sometimes I've seen ego on both sides. Wife's got a big ego, man's got a big ego, they ain't going to get on. I'll tell you that now, they will not get on. Because when they have their first dispute, first conflict, they will not back down. And what happens in other marriages is one who has a balanced ego, low level ego, she gives in. Or he gives in. Always giving in. But even that has a limit. 10, 15 years. And they'll say, you know what, I've had enough. I always back off. He never admits he's wrong. So also look at this. That you do not want to marry an egotistic person. On the flip side, humility. Look for humility in a marriage, in a man and a woman. Somebody who is humble. Okay, I put my hands up. That was my fault. I shouldn't have said that to your mum. That's a quality that you need to look for. Your marriage will flourish. And obviously we need to have that within ourselves. And that's a rule. Whatever you want, you need to have within yourselves. Yeah? Men are always talking about, we're looking for the Khadija radiallahu anha of the time. So do you behave like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? You want Khadija, then you behave like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Women say, we want a man like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then are you Khadija? Are you supportive and loyal and trustworthy like Khadija radiallahu anha was? It's a fair and balanced. Someone who is appreciative and grateful. Both sides, men do a lot for their wives and women do a lot. They go out their way. But he never appreciates what I do. I cook for him the best meals. I try and cook like his mum. I dress up for him. He's never once said, you look good today. Don't marry an ungrateful man. And the same way with women. There are men who don't just give expenses, they go out their way with expensive. Spend hundreds on their wives. Handbags, shoes, perfumes, holidays, 2 times a year, 3 times a year. And I've had it. I've had men say to me, she doesn't appreciate it, she just wants more. Do not marry an ungrateful woman. So look for somebody who appreciates things. And key one, truthfulness and honesty. Your word is your honor. If you say something before marriage, fulfill it. So we all have conditions, deal breakers. And sometimes within months those conditions are broken. So do your background checks. Is he or she an honest woman? Emotional intelligence, I've mentioned that. That's more for men. I think with women generally they have this quality greater, and that's why it affects the marriages. They're not attuned with their emotions and feelings. So a wife is sometimes feeling down, she's upset, the man doesn't understand. And for men, this doesn't go against masculinity or being an alpha male. The Prophet ﷺ was the greatest of man. The Prophet ﷺ was emotionally intelligent. When somebody would come, he would empathize with them. He would know their feelings. Read the hadith, the advice the Prophet ﷺ would give. The Prophet ﷺ's own son died, Ibrahim radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ was crying to the point the Sahaba said, "Oh, Ya Rasulullah, you're crying? You're a man. How can you cry? You're a prophet. How can you cry?" What was the Prophet ﷺ's response? This is mercy in the heart of humans. This is mercy. Men have mercy. We do get merciful men. And if you don't have mercy in your heart, then work on it before marriage. Generally, naturally, women have more mercy. So emotional intelligence is something big. You can get articles, videos, books on it. Forgiveness. Somebody who is forgiving. Nobody likes to be stuck on a roundabout with no exit. Men make mistakes in marriage, women make mistakes. We are all work in progress. That's the term I like to use. When you get married, whether it's at 25 or 35, whatever age you get married at, you have flaws, you have weaknesses. Men have anger, work on your anger. Men get angry. Women sometimes say the wrong things at the wrong time. Work on controlling your mouth. Work on your emotions. Sometimes women get too emotional, every little thing. No man wants that. No man wants to come home to a waterfall every day. Every little thing she's crying. That's work in progress. But that is the duty of the parents to work on. Work out. Your son and daughter and every child is different. But you don't want somebody who is stubborn and doesn't forgive on those mistakes. So at the same time, I'm saying men and women have weaknesses. We have to be forgiving. And this is equally for both. I've seen women who don't forgive, and I've seen men who don't forgive. They're just stubborn. They just repeat the same thing again and again. Money sense. Somebody who balances how they spend their money. Money causes a lot of fights in marriage. I've mentioned at the start, people who marry for financial reasons only, then money is a big deal breaker. That, you know, I married him, he's a barrister, he's on 80,000, 90,000 pounds wage. He never spends on me. I've only been on my honeymoon 15 years ago, we've never been on a holiday again. Patience. Patience is a big one. We all need patience in a marriage because your wife will make mistakes. In the early years of marriage, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to tell her, well, I don't like your food, I don't like cooking like this. It's going to take a time to learn how you want your food. In the same way, women need to be patient. Your husband will be angry. Your husband may have bad eating habits, sleeping habits. And yeah, that is an issue. You know, sometimes the way a man eats, the way he conducts himself, you need patience. It will take time for him to change. We are all work in progress. Fidelity and loyalty. If you find a man or woman who is loyal and you know they're loyal people, it's a big green flag, big bonus. Somebody who is optimistic, always positive, wants to grow. So this doesn't apply to all couples because sometimes there are men and women who are happy, they're complacent in their job, in their career, in their wage, in their house. They live in a 2 up, 2 down. They're happy with that. They don't want a new car. They don't want to go on holidays. But there are men and women, I would say probably more women, who have this growth mindset. So often the complaint we hear from women is he doesn't want to improve, he's not optimistic, he doesn't want to change. And the woman, you know, even Islamically, she wants to do courses, she wants to improve her deen, she wants to go for Hajj and Umrah. And the guy doesn't care. The guy doesn't care. He's happy not going on holiday, will just take you to, you know, Blackpool Lake District, and she wants to go to Islamic places. She wants to go to Masjid al-Aqsa, she wants to go to Jerusalem and Jordan and Turkey. So she wants to improve her deen. And number 2, there'll be courses and classes she wants to take. She wants to travel with her husband. weekends he's just playing cricket and football and volleyball. Ask these questions beforehand. So there are men like that as well who have a growth mindset, but more women I've seen in this day and age that want to improve their deen and dunya, and there is nothing wrong with that. Dunya is not haram, by the way. It's not haram to earn money. I don't want anyone to think that when I said earlier that you just looked at wealth, you just looked at it. The problem there is you didn't look at deen. So in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, a dua, Allahumma Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana. First the Prophet ﷺ said, oh Allah, give us goodness in the world. That is money, that is a good wife, that is a good husband, a good job, a good car. That's dunya. Otherwise tell me what else is dunya. Wa fil akhirati hasana. And also give us in the hereafter goodness. That's Quran, that's hadith, that's not my opinion. The Prophet ﷺ is asking, oh Allah, give us good in dunya and akhirah. So if a woman says, you know, I live in a terrace house in Burnley, I don't want to always live here. I want to get married, work hard, I want a big house for my children. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as she has the deen. And it's the same way as a man like that. He wants to go out and do charity work. So I want to be a millionaire because I want to help people in Gaza and Syria. There's nothing wrong with that. He's got good intentions. Because with that same money he could do haram. So look at growth mindset. Now we will come on to, inshallah, questions. What sort of questions to ask? And then we will end on istikhara. So we've got about 5 minutes left, inshallah. If anybody's got questions, I do believe there are slips being passed down on the sister side, and on the men's side there are slips on the chairs. If you need a pen, I think there's a pen going around. So if we hand them in, then I just know how much time we have left. Please just return the questions back as well. So what sort of questions do you ask? If you want to write these down, record them, because often people ring me before a meeting. And I always say with the meeting, if the first meeting was short, unexpected, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, ask for a second meeting. It's not haram to ask for a second meeting. And if somebody is really positive, you know, they've met her half an hour, I always say go for a second meeting. Why? What I said earlier, marriage is lifetime. It's not an August receipt where you can return it in 14 days. You can't return your wife after 14 days. It's lifetime. Have that mindset that I'm going to marry her and him forever. Yeah, in this world and in Jannah you'll be together as well. That's a long time. So asking for a second meeting, sometimes people are hesitant. I absolutely think there's nothing wrong with it. I know people who ask for a third meeting because certain things weren't clarified. Or you did your DBS, so you had a meeting, you did your DBS that he says he prays 5 salah in the masjid. We didn't realize that. Or the sister said, you know, I cook mashallah biryani and roast and chicken and I'm a really good cook. And you did your DBS and apparently she can't even fry an egg. So you need to have that second meeting and said, hang on, we need to clarify this. Apparently you don't know how to cook. So if something big like that, deal breakers, and sometimes it's relationships, haram relationships. You do your DBS and this comes up that apparently he was going out with a girl for 15 years and he was going to marry her, but their parents said no. And when you met the guy, he said, I've never looked at another woman. So what sort of questions should you ask? I've already touched about childhood and parents. That you don't have to ask these questions. It just depends on the person. I do believe, obviously as a counsellor, I believe in trauma. Parents, how was your relationship with your parents? Well, I don't talk to my mom for 15 years, you know. I hate my mom. Why? Why does he hate his mom? Is there issues there? My dad, you know, my dad was never here for us. He was an absent father. Then you know what sort of child, what sort of upbringing he had. So ask about parents, family, siblings. Okay, Jazakallah. So that's from the brothers. Any questions from the sisters? Inshallah, just pass them on. In terms of work, you should ask where they're working, where they worked previously, salary. There's no harm in asking about that. Simply because sometimes people lie. You know, someone's like a teaching assistant in a school, so you know what salary is. But they've said, I work in a school, that you're acting like the head teacher. But I'm not against somebody who's a teaching assistant, but there's a big difference between somebody who's a teaching assistant or who's a teacher or who's a head of year or the head teacher. So ask if you genuinely want to know. And sometimes this is for divorcees where the man didn't pay his way. So you should explain that, you know, with my previous husband, he never used to pay his way. So can I just ask where you work and what exactly you do? Ask about that. If you feel maybe they were engaged or they've been divorced, sometimes people don't make this clear on a profile that they've been divorced. Ask about that, previous marriages, or were you ever engaged, or have you ever got close to somebody? Relationships. Now with relationships, I'm going to mention one part which sometimes is controversial. In Islam, your sins are hidden. Allah hides your sin. Somebody did sin last night, they were in a club or a pub, they did tawbah in the morning, it's wiped, it's hidden. When it comes to marriages, it gets a bit tricky. So if a person was in a haram relationship or several haram relationships, since high school, college, he's been dating, she's been dating, and you don't want a person like that. Yeah, the Quran says, Al-khabithuna lil-khabithat wa tayyibuna li-tayyibat. So that good men are for good women and evil men are for evil women. So this is the rule of Allah, that if a person, a woman, she stays pure and chaste, Allah will give you somebody like that. So how do we know that is this person, has he been through relationships? Because we're not allowed to expose the sin. So what I say with this, some ulama say you don't need to say it. If you've been in a haram relationship, you've done tawbah, then you don't need to say it, because the rule of Allah is that Allah hid your sin, provided you've done tawbah. Obviously, if you're still that person who cannot control, then you should be honest that, you know, I do have this tendency to talk to girls online. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So she knows. If it's a deal breaker, she says no. But if you've done tawbah, but if sometimes girls, and boys have asked as well, but more women have asked, have you had a haram relationship? And that's a deal breaker for her. That if you've been in a previous relationship, then I don't want to know you. But the other part of it is you also have to hide your sin. So my balance on this is that, let's just say it's a girl asking, and she asks the guy, and he's been in a haram relationship. So you don't expose your sin. You say, no, I've not been in a haram relationship. Now you guys will flag up, but he's lied. But then you say no to the girl as well. Does that make sense? So both sides are covered. Your sin has been hidden. So you've been in haram relationships, even if you got to the point of zina. And this is common, by the way. If somebody thinks I'm waffling on and going over, no, this is very common. Wallahi, recently I dealt with a divorce that happened because of this. Hence I'm going on about it. And because the wife was a deal breaker, she said to me, Maulana, I've never been with a guy. So that was my deal breaker. And I asked him, have you ever been with a girl? After marriage, she found out he'd been with several girls. They came to me for divorce. And I asked him, why did you lie? And I told him this scenario. I go, the way you do it is you say, no, I've never been with a girl, but then you say no to her. So in that way, you've not broken her trust. Does that make sense? I personally think this is the best way. Like I said, there is an opinion of ulama who say that you just hide the sin. So if you've been in a haram relationship, even a girl's been in a haram relationship, you just say no. And that's all fine and dandy as long as nothing comes up. In the years of marriage, nothing comes up. No previous flings come up. Nothing comes up on your social media. That, hang on, I found these chats with this girl. You told me you'd never been with a girl. So I think this way is the best solution. Finally, I'm going to come on to istikhara. One other thing about questions to ask is living arrangements. Very big for women. And the growing trend now is not to live with in-laws. If the guy, we have to be fair as well. Women have to be fair, you have brothers as well. So if you are an only son, for example, and you have to look after your parents, then make it clear to her. And I'll be honest, there's many brothers who do this and the women are fine with it. I know many brothers who are the only son who made it clear that I need to look after my parents, so I need to marry a girl who's going to live with me and my parents in my house. The girl's okay with it, marry her. She's not okay with it, she doesn't want to live with in-laws, then don't marry. But the guys need to be clear. So women need to ask about living arrangements, guys need to be clear. If you have a lot of siblings, the guy's got 3, 4, 5 siblings, unmarried, so you can't afford a house, especially in cities, Leicester, Birmingham, London, this is a big issue. You can't afford a house, you can't even afford rent. Then be clear with her that 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, we'll be living with my mum and dad, and you'll be living with my siblings. So she knows if she can manage that, she marries him. If you can't manage it, it's a deal breaker, don't marry him. Simple. Find a guy who will move out straight away. But living arrangement is one of the questions you need to ask. And now we will come on to istikhara, and then we will go through the questions, inshaAllah. So istikhara is very important. I mentioned this even though it sounds very basic and simple for people. I do get a lot of people, boys and girls, who now have marriage problems or who are divorced, and they didn't do istikhara. They didn't do istikhara. So we have to teach people istikhara. first and foremost is not based on a dream. I have done istikhara. I don't do istikhara for people, by the way. People ask me, I don't do it. Simply because the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is you do it yourself. Why do you do it yourself? You care about your marriage. I don't. The honest truth is I don't. I don't care much about you and your marriage as much as you will. Your parents could do it. But I don't believe in these Maulvis, and sadly it's become a money-making business where you do istikhara for people, because istikhara is done with the heart and mind. You want the right wife. You want the right husband. जितना दिल से आप करेंगे, सोच और गौर से, I will not do, no Maulvi will do, I'll be honest. And it's just become a money-making business. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you do istikhara yourself. There is a simple website, istikhara.com. Check it, istikhara.com. The normal spelling is, one, you prepare yourself mentally. You can't be biased. So where istikhara is biased, you've been dating her for 7-8 years, you've been meeting in the park and cinema and God knows where, and then you do istikhara and only she shows up in a wedding dress. Obviously she was going to show up in a wedding dress because you talked to her for hours and hours. Istikhara is biased. Why I have to mention this, and some of you find it funny, is because when they get divorced, they ring Maulvis like, Maulana Sahab, humne to istikhara kiya tha. How did it not work? Aapne istikhara galat kiya tha. रात दिन उस लड़की से बात करना जो हराम है, फिर अल्लाह से दुआ मांगना कि अल्लाह उसमें खैर डालो, but you're doing haram. Does that make sense? You gotta do istikhara. What I say to the boyfriend-girlfriend scenario is, at least for that week, 10 days, stop talking, meeting. Do you get it? At a low level, first you shouldn't be talking in the first place, but for that week, 10 days, have an agreement, कि अभी istikhara करना, are we right for each other? Don't talk. But you shouldn't be talking in the first place. Number 2 is, if you're still unsure about istikhara, ask your local alim, alima, imam. 2 rakats you pray any time of the day. This is a misconception in people कि रात को पढ़नी है, और ये गलत फहमी फिर दूसरी गलत फहमी होती है कि रात को करना क्योंकि ख्वाब आता है. ख्वाब ज़रूरी नहीं है. ज़ोहर के बाद भी पढ़ सकते हैं, मगरिब के बाद भी पढ़ सकते हैं. Any time you can pray these 2 rakat nafil. Asr I didn't mention because you can't pray nafil after Asr. So after Maghrib or Isha, 2 rakat with the intention of istikhara. The dua you can find on the website. It's the same dua, istikhara.com, like I said, or Google it, istikhara dua. If somebody can't find it, I'm happy to share it. So during your istikhara dua, you will make intention for that boy or girl. Right? And I just add on a side note here, people also do istikhara for a house, for a car, maybe even something else expensive you want to buy, or you want to move house, or anything. Istikhara is not just for marriage. I do istikhara a lot. Probably every week I do it for different things. You could do istikhara for people. I'm going into business with somebody, मुझे लगता है ये आदमी सही नहीं है. You're meeting a friend, you're meeting a new person. Should I go for Hajj next year? Do istikhara. So you pay the 2 rakats with the boy or girl in mind, and then the number of days commonly known is 7 days. It's not hadith. There is no hadith on 7 days. It's just a good amount. It's a week. Somebody did it for 3 days and made a decision, no problem. 3 दिन के बाद आपको शर सदर हो गया कि ये लड़का ठीक है, no problem. You've had good signs. हफ्ते के बाद कुछ नहीं हुआ. You can do it for 2 weeks. 10 दिन भी कर सकते हैं. It's not a set limit. One thing I will mention for guys and girls which comes up, a problem on the men's side, is sometimes you've gone to see a girl और 3 दिन के बाद 5 दिन के बाद जवाब नहीं आया, and it's usually the men's side who are quite pushy. Remember, I've just mentioned about istikhara. There are times which, if you're old enough to get married, you should old enough to know a girl can't pray, and this is a genuine reason. So if she is on her cycle and she can't do istikhara, she may take 2 weeks to give a jawab. कोई क़यामत नहीं आ जाती. 2 हफ्ते के बाद जवाब दिया, yes or no, it's not the end of the world. So just bear that in mind. I say this because often on the men's side they do ring that, we proposed to this girl, my son went to see her, it's been 10 days and they've not given an answer. Give them time, because it's a lifetime decision. Personally, if somebody takes 2-3 weeks, to me is okay. I don't generally say give an answer within a week, especially if you don't know much about him. It's a week istikhara, it could take another week to do your DBS and research as well. So that's the istikhara. Misconceptions about istikhara: you don't have to see a dream. If you saw a dream, you saw the girl in a white dress, you saw the guy in a wedding suit, mashallah, it's a good sign. It's a good sign. Colors are good sign. White and green. You see white, green, good sign. You see red and black is a bad sign. That's if you see the dream. Let's say somebody did not see a dream at all. So then his istikhara has failed. No. You do your mashwara, you do your DBS, and you go off feelings, how you feel about the situation. If you feel good, then definitely the signs are good, the meeting was went, family is good, your mom and dad are happy, his mom and dad are happy, go ahead. If in the istikhara process you see a red flag, for example, you've seen something on his social media, in the istikhara process, take that as a sign from Allah. If you've heard something that you've told your auntie, uncle, and they've said, nahi nahi, ye ladka theek nahi hai, we've heard this about the girl, take that, because istikhara is asking Allah for goodness. Allah will put people in your way, especially if you're doing your DBS checks. So take signs. It's one thing I think people don't believe in, even as Muslims. Allah will give you signs. So if Allah showed you something, a red flag, during the istikhara process, that's your istikhara answered. Run away and say no. Inshallah, we will answer the questions now. How to increase barakah and love. So I'm assuming this is somebody who is married, and they wrote Masturat Jamaat. So generally, Dini practices do ta'aleem in the house. Ta'aleem doesn't have to be from one particular book. It can be from stories of the Prophet. It can be a book on marriage. There are many books on marriage. I think Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera has one. Mona Tanwi has one. There are many books on marriage that you can find. Read them. Read them to each other. So read husband's rights, wife's rights. Things like Jamaat, seminars together, programs together is good. And if you can't do that, you're in an area where there are no seminars, programs, some part of England, go for walks together, go for drives together, go for meals together. These things, I'll be honest with you, when people come to me for marriage counseling, this is often what I say. It sounds petty. It sounds petty, but then couples don't do it. They don't even sit together, never mind walk together and drive together, meals together once a month. It's not costly. Everybody can't afford a holiday. Dubai is expensive, Qatar is expensive, and Turkey is expensive. You can't do that. But a meal to Manchester and Bradford is not expensive. So do something together, that builds love. Understand each other. And if you're having a lot of conflicts, then I would say write things down. I don't like you doing this, and she doesn't like you doing this. And talk about it. If you can't come to a resolution, go to a marriage counsellor. If someone has good character but works on deen, weak on deen, would you take the risk or look for more deen? Okay, good question actually. Okay, good question. I actually mentioned this sometimes as an example. I forgot today. So somebody has good character. Let's define good character. What do you guys think is good character? Kind, respect, soft-natured, generous, Zuban, big one. Talk softly, humbly, man and woman, yeah? So this is a very good question, whoever's asked this, because this is part of my points. It comes up that the sister has good character, kind, soft, gentle, looks after her mother, mashallah, she's got everything. But the sister does not pray namaz. Ooh. The sister does not wear hijab. The brother's never seen in the masjid. But he earns halal, he's got a good job, stability. My advice, marry him, marry her, and work on the deen. You've got a lifetime to work on the deen. Shall I tell you why? This is my experience. Namaz admi na pare na, namaz admi par sakta hai. Aurat hijab na pare. And wallahi, I've seen this with my own friends who married women. They were practicing religious tablighi. They're practicing they're married women who are non-practicing. No hijab, makeup, tight clothing. Wallahi, today they are married with children and she's changed her clothing. She's changed her appearance. But they were good character. Character is hard to work on. If a man is angry, ask a woman who's married to an angry man. It's hard. If a man is abusive, he earns haram, that's hard to work on. Namaz, hijab, deen, it'll come in. So can you see the difference between deen and character? Character is very hard to change somebody, especially the older they get. So whoever asked this question, marry them and change them. Because you know why they'll change? Somebody could say to me, how can you guarantee? Because they got good character, they're humble, they're kind, they're soft, so they listen to you. And obviously you've got to be diplomatic in how you relay the deen. That's a big one. Problem with men is, from Monday, we got married, you're wearing hijab, you're not going out, you're not talking to ghair mahram, and she's lived a different lifestyle. Try and understand the family. There are girls who want to change. They didn't have the mahol at home. You, the husband, can do that. Family cousins are usually a better match, but the young people are stubborn and refuse to consider to take a risk with unknown people. Is it not better with family? Okay, good question. So, who should you marry? Jazakallah. Oh, there's a lot of questions coming in, so I'll have to be quick. Oh no, actually these are blanks. I got worried there. There's only about 5 questions here. He's given me about 10 slips. I thought, okay, those are blanks. So, with these questions, there's pros and cons in everything. So I'm going to quickly do both. A guy who marries his cousin. So whoever's asked this question has said, yeah, isn't it better, there's less risk. If you ask most our parents and grandparents, traditional, they will all agree with this question. All agree, and they are right as well to an extent that your cousin, chacha ki beti, khala ki beti, we know her, she grew up in front of us, so big pro. The girl in uni, you don't know how she grew up and where she grew up and how many guys she's been with. The girl, your chacha's daughter, you knew where she grew up, number 1. Number 2, they know the zuban. Zuban is important with parents, yeah? You marry someone out of culture, Algerian, Egyptian, Tunisian, Moroccan, yeah? She's going to come into your house, she doesn't speak English, your mom and dad don't speak Arabic, communication problems. And I could even say further, food, cooking problems. Yeah, you like your biryani, and you like Pakistani food, and she's cooking tagines and falafel, and we want masala in our food. The men are laughing, but I'll tell you something, it's caused big problems in marriages. The men who married for looks, the Algerian, the Egyptian, the Moroccan, and on Fridays and Saturdays when they said, I want biryani. And Gujarati people, we want dal chawal. You want what? What's dal chawal? What's biryani? And she will make you a biryani like you've never had in your life. And you'll never want it again. And let me tell you something for the men. I usually say this in private. You eat food every day. Khana to rozana khate na. So food, men always laugh at this, but they agree, food is a big issue in marriage. So marrying the chacha's daughter, her food will be similar to your mom's. It's a big pro. Zuban is the same. Cultural understanding in terms of deen and madhab is same. Is big pros this, by the way. Massive. The girl in uni is not going to guarantee you that. But what might happen, the cons of marrying the chacha's daughter, we're not compatible. Sometimes looks, I don't like her. Some people even to say we grew up in one household, so she's like my sister, I can't marry her. And I get it, it happens. You were close, your fathers were close, and she's like my sister, I don't want to marry her, khala's daughter, etc. So compatibility is big. So this is where the British children disagree with their parents. Yes, we know her, she grew up, she's going to cook your food, talk the zuban, but I'm not compatible. So at the same time, I'm going to be fair, compatibility is important. Compared to the girl you meet on the profile, the website, the uni girl, she will have compatibility. She may have the looks you want. She may be doing a degree you're doing. She's a pharmacist, I'm a pharmacist. She's a teacher, I'm a teacher. Compatibility. And you have same goals, same mindset which you don't have with your relative. The cons though, with the stranger. The cons of the stranger is you don't know her background. You've seen her in uni for 3 years, or you've only seen her profile. What did she do before that? She's divorced, what happened in her marriage? With your cousin's sister, you know what happened in the marriage. You know it was her fault, the husband's fault. So you don't know background. So there's pros and cons to both, I'll be fair. And then it's up to the individual. If you have a good cousin, marry her. Because the pros are big, I'll be honest, in marrying your cousin. If you're not compatible, you have a different mindset. You might have grown up next door to each other, but she's traditional and the guy is outgoing. He's become a solicitor, barrister, and he wants to travel the world. He's got big ambitions. And she's just traditional housewife. I don't want a traditional housewife. Some people want traditional housewife. So it's what you want. But there's pros and cons to both. So try and understand and come to compromise, which is a key word in marriage. What if the parents are a barrier as in not agreeing to a good potential? I think this question may answer half of that. Why? Why are your parents not agreeing? Is it because they only want from the same village, same brotherly, same caste? Then Islamically, if I give it pure Islamic answer, that's wrong. For anybody to say they have to be from our caste is wrong. The Prophet ﷺ married women outside the Arab. He married an Egyptian woman. He married Satia radiallahu anha, who was Jew. She was previously a Jew. Out of the madhab. So I do know it's a big issue, but fairly I have said there are pros of marrying somebody in same caste, same area, same family, but it shouldn't be that it becomes haram to marry an Indian boy or a Bengali boy or a Moroccan boy, and he's good, because that goes against the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, فَازْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, marry the one and become successful in deen. So if you are Pakistani, you are Pathan or Punjabi, but an Indian boy has the deen, a Bengali boy has the deen, the Arab has the deen, according to the Prophet ﷺ, you've got to marry him. So parents need to be fair, and at the same time, this question, we need to look at why are the parents a barrier? Have they sinned something? And for me, let's say this example, the parents are not good. Your mom and dad say, Larka theek hai, lekin uske maa baap aise waise hai, then that is a point girls need to consider as well. Because you will be marrying into that family, possibly living into that family. But race should not be a barrier. What if everything goes well and research comes back great too, but after marriage everything changes? So this question does happen. Let's be honest. There are people who did the research to the best of their capability. They asked the Imam of the masjid, they asked where he works, they asked his relatives. Everything came back good. And I'll be honest with you, who I blame in this is sometimes people as well. Alhamdulillah, people ask me, because I'm in this field, people do ask me about this guy, and I'll give an honest opinion. That this lad, I know him, he prays in our masjid 5 times a day, but I'll be honest, his company is not good. He's smoking shisha on the weekends, he's out vaping, I've seen him sometimes with girls, but he's 5 times in the masjid. So I've given you an honest view. Shall I be honest? Very few people do that. Commonly, in all cultures, Indian, Pakistani, Bengali, you ask a Baba, bahut achhi ladki hai, bahut achhi ladki hai. Tell me you've heard this, yeah? You ask a Baba, bahut acha ladka hai. They never add the brackets or the comma. Bahut acha ladka hai, uske maa baap bhi bahut acha hai, lekin wo shayad galat jagah kaam karta hai. He works like in some club or a pub, he does security, some off license, and the girl doesn't want somebody who's earning haram money. You have to be balanced. So the people who sometimes do the research are not fair and balanced because it's their own cousin, or they get offended. So this question, where you did the research, they could be blamed, but you've done your research. You did istikhara. For weeks and weeks you did istikhara. Then things are not going well. The answer to that is, you need to work on it. You need to look at what's not going well. If it's a bit of anger, a bit of argument, financial issues, he's not looking after the kids, or in-laws issues, it can be worked on. I would suggest you take advice from local imam, ulama, or a marriage counsellor, or your own parents. Sometimes parents can be good, sometimes parents can't be good, because parents naturally are going to be defensive. They're going to be biased. I'm not against parents, a girl ringing her parents and complaining, or a guy. But when parents get involved, what I've seen is each side sticks up for their own. Hamari ladki theek hai, hamari ladki farishte, she never sets a foot wrong. Hamara ladka theek hai is beaten a black and blue. But that's the girl's fault because she says the wrong thing. The guy needs to control his anger. Hence, when I do marriage counselling, I never have parents. I have the husband, wife, no third party. No brother-in-law, sister-in-law, because I am impartial, I try my best, and then there's nobody sticking up for each other. So this last question, I would say seek help and look at obviously what the wrong is. If it's something major, there's a lack of loyalty, infidelity, and you've given him a chance, he's got caught with another girl, third time, then you start looking at, is this guy ever going to change? And it's the same with financial issues. Someone speak to him and he starts paying his way around. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all those who are looking. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everybody sukoon, mawadda and rahmah in those who are married. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everybody pious children. Ameen. Ya Rabbal